Hello chess friends and welcome to your of Chess channel and welcome to a spectacular game from the Champion Chess Tour event that you could follow on chess.com. The game was played a couple of weeks ago and in my opinion it was a great event where we had an amazing spectacular super final. We had the derby between Alireza and Magnus Carlsen. So we have to mention Alireza won the event. He broke Magnus Carlsen twice in the Armageddon game. I'm not sure how many times Magnus Carlsen lost twice the Armageddon game. So Alireza was of course a deserved winner, and I always feel a little bit about Alireza that he's feeling more comfortable in this rapid sections, in this faster time format. We haven't seen of course the best by Alireza in the recent candidates in 2024, but like Magnus Carlsen also mentioned that he wants to play more rapid blitz bullet chess. He wants to play, I don't know, more attractive events. Like Magnus Carlsen, I think Alireza is feeling more and more comfortable in his faster time formats, and it's not the first time of course that Alireza won a super final against Magnus Carlsen, so that's why I think huge accomplishment, and I decided to show you a really beautiful game. It was a rapid beautiful game between the two of them, in my opinion even one of the best games of the event. So let's now dive into the game here with the white pieces. Alireza opened with move d4. We have d5 by Magnus Carlsen, c4 the queen's gambit, e6 the queen's gambit declined, and now after c takes d5 we have now the so-called exchange variation. After e takes d5 we have now bishop to g5, which is now the so-called positional line. We have now c6, and after move e3 here we have bishop to f5, and usually after this bishop to f5 I think the best approach is simply to play queen to f3. After something like bishop to g6 now you can at least create a messed up pawn structure here. Okay, black is continuing the game with the bishop pair, but I think in a couple of more moves the realistic plan here by white is somehow to get this knight on this beautiful f5 square, maybe king to d2, bishop to d3, knight to e2, knight to g3, knight to f5. It's a strategic plan. I think it could work here for white. Many games you see in the database also in this particular line. But after move bishop to f5, Alireza tried a different approach. He tries knight to e2 with the preparation to play f3 e4, and this f3 e4 it's actually the main theme, the main subject of the positional line of the exchange variation of the queen's gambit decline. Usually you have to prepare this move. If you rush too early, if you play the move e4 too early, you could get destroyed. I have created a separate playlist about this Queen's Gambit decline exchange variation. You can check it out. Here's the link of our videos. I've explained that more in white's and black's perspective, how you should proceed here, when to push e4, when to not push e4. And you see actually after a couple more moves here, Alireza after knight from b to d7 and f3 and bishop to e7 rushed simply too early with the move e4. Here Alireza first of all defends his e3 pawn. So far so good. Bishop to h7, knight to g3, again the preparation to play the move e4, and now after queen to b6 Magnus hits of course the pawn. Alireza plays now queen to d2, protects of course the pawn by the attack by the queen. We have now kingside castling, bishop to e2, and now rook from f to d8 here by Magnus Carlsen. Good move by Magnus, anticipating the possibility of the move e4, and now the real fun starts. So we have seen maybe not the same position but similar position where the queen is maybe even here on c7, but as I said, the main strategic goal by white is somehow to push the pawn on e4. But here Alireza I think has to play first of all kingside castling, and then after bishop to f8 you play rook from f to e1, then you play maybe bishop to f1. You still need 3-4 moves in order to make the e4 goal work. So that's I think the problem here. And now maybe later you can finally push the pawn on e4, but Alireza played immediately e4 where the king is still in the center. I think you should not push the pawn immediately. So after move e4 we have d takes e4 by Magnus, we have f takes e4, and now Magnus doesn't react correctly. Here Magnus try to break of course the center, and you should actually break the center if your opponent's king is still stuck in the center. But there is a different way how you can break the center without pushing the pawns. Actually what Magnus should have played here is the move knight to d5. Look how e4, if you rush with this move can be immediately punished by your opponent. Look at this, knight to d5. You're trying maybe something like, okay, he takes d5. Maybe you're thinking, dude, what you're talking about, we just take the knight. But now you play bishop to g5. You continue the attacking flow against the queen. Now queen to d1. Now you pick up this one. For instance, you're trying kingside castle. We pick up this one. You're trying maybe knight to a4. You're trying to keep your knight on the board. Then we simply play queen to b4. You have to step back. Now look at this. Again, white's king is stuck on f1. This rook will not play in the game after something like a3. The queen maybe can be rerouted here. Takes. Queen comes here. Queen check. This other rook is coming into the game. So I would not really love to play anymore this game from white's perspective. So huge opportunity here by Magnus Carlsen to play the move knight to d5. But instead of that, as we mentioned, he played c5, and this gives Alireza Firouzja a huge opportunity to play a central counterattack with the move e5. And now, okay, maybe rook from a to d8 should have been here. Maybe Magnus Carlsen's move after e takes f6, knight to f6. Okay, still up your upper piece, but at least the rooks are targeting something here in the center of the board. After move e5, what Magnus Carlsen decided is to play now the move c takes d4. And what should now white do? Here the continuation, of course, Alireza took. Still the knight is hanging. We have bishop to c5 by Magnus Carlsen, and now knight to a4. You see how Magnus Carlsen blundered in the early state of the game. He should have played this aggressive knight to d5. Now basically his position is collapsing, and eventually he's losing the piece. So here in the game, queen to c6 was played by Magnus Carlsen, knight to c5 by Alireza, knight takes c5, and now e takes f6. This was now maybe I think even the first really important mistake here by Alireza Firouzja. A better choice is to play first of all bishop takes c5. Look at this. After queen to c5, now you pick up the knight, because you want to, when you up a piece, of course, you want to simplify the game by trading off more pieces. So here after something like rook from a to d8, you can step back to c3. Of course, black is trying to keep the queen here on this diagonal, but now with rook to d1, you can simplify the game and you can continue the game with an extra piece. Of course, it's not the optimal position of the king here, but I think you can get somehow maybe the rook f1, f2, maybe f3, rook to d3. You will eventually get finally the rook into the game, because the king, like in the previous line, is not on f1. But here after knight to c5, Alireza took the knight without taking this knight first. So he should have taken both of these knights. That's the point here. So that's why here rook from a to d8, and now suddenly Magnus Carlsen equalizes the game here in this particular position. The Stockfish engine gives here equal chances for both sides, because now the bishop is pinned and you cannot do so much about it. So that's why here first of all kingside castling by Alireza, knight to e6 by Magnus, bishop to f3, and now Magnus puts more pressure, of course, on the d file. Now the bishop is simply lost. We have f takes g7, queen takes d4. Magnus Carlsen trades off everything, and now after bishop to b7, knight to e2, knight takes e2, and rook takes e2. Here we have, I think, a pretty equal position. Okay, white is up a pawn. White is up 2 pawns. Of course, we'll lose this pawn, but I think if black plays now the game correctly, this should be, I think, a thematic draw. Okay, let's see what happened. Here, Alireza continued with b4. Simply doesn't want, of course, lose his powerful pawn majority. Here he's trying to create here passer and of course somehow promote to queen. Here we have king takes g7, rook to f4, rook to b2, a4, and now bishop to b1 by Magnus Carlsen, not allowing of course this rook to play. We have bishop to f3 by Alireza, f5 by Magnus, we have h3, and now king to f6, rook to a3, rook to e5, and now rook to h4, simply going for this weak pawn on h6. We have bishop to e4, Magnus is trying to simplify the game, bishop to e4, f takes e4. Magnus creates now a very dangerous fully advanced pawn on the e file. Alireza of course plays first of all the check, king to d4, and now grabs the pawn here on h6. We have a rook to g8, g4, and now after rook to c8 here by Magnus Carlsen, now Alireza Firouzja makes a huge mistake. Pause the video and try to see now here the best continuation for white. What would you do? This move is only helping you here to make a draw, because obviously the threat is rook to c1. So my question for you is, just for fun, pause the video and try to see now the best defensive idea here for white. There's only one good move here for white. Okay, here Alireza played a huge blunder with the move rook to f6. Okay, you are of course protecting your back rank, but the issue is after rook to f6, the king is still close enough to the action, so you can do the same thing, but at least you can kick away the king to the other side of the board by playing the move first of all rook to d6. That's a huge difference. After something like king to e5, now you get your rook on the back rank, preventing this checkmate threat on with rook to c1. After something like rook to e2, I think this position is pretty equal. So I don't want to now really dive into any possible endgame line, but the huge difference is now that the king is now on the 5th rank, not on the 4th rank, and that's the issue here. For rook to c8 and rook to f6 that Alireza plays, you see now the king is closer to the action. Magnus continues of course with rook to c1. You have to cover with rook to f1, and now Magnus actually makes a huge blunder. Maybe just for fun again, let's practice here really some endgames. What's now the best continuation here for white? What should you for black? Pardon me, black moves, and I would even dare to say wins the game because of this blunder by Alireza Firouzja, because he allowed here the king to be close enough to the action. So what should be now Magnus Carlsen's next move? Okay, here Magnus played a seemingly good move, but actually it's not working. Rook to c2, I don't know, would many of us would play because you're keeping your rooks on the 2nd rank, which is perfectly fine. You will try and deliver checks, but this is defend with rook to g3. A better choice for Magnus would have been simply to trade off the rooks and going into really fully endgame stage. After king to f1, now you get the pawn move e3, and you see now how important it was for Alireza to maybe kick away the king now from the action, because now the king will have access to the f3 square, and actually although here in this scenario Magnus Carlsen is down 2 pawns, actually because of the more active king he should actually win this endgame, but Magnus Carlsen didn't play that. Of course, white is maybe trying to play b5. Now, as we mentioned, we play king to f3 with threatening checkmate. You have to play king to g1, we deliver a check. Now maybe something like this. We pick up now first of all this pawn. White is trying somehow to push this pawn further, but now we simply again go for this one. Again, checkmate threat on h1. Again, you have to do something. Now we reroute the rook here. Again, checkmate threat. You have to cover or maybe escape with the king. And now after the check, you slowly push this pawn further to e2, e1, and this is game over here for white. So that's what Magnus Carlsen's huge opportunity here in the game. After rook to f1, here Magnus played rook to c2, and actually now it's suddenly a winning game here for Alireza Firouzja, because after rook to g3 he's controlling the g2 square. Magnus is trying to push the pawns, but it's simply not working. Now you see the king is not here on f3, where it was very dangerous with the support of the rook, with the support of the pawn. We have seen a couple of checkmate patterns all over the board, so it was always a huge opportunity for Magnus Carlsen to have an attack against the white king, which is really, we have to say, it's stuck on the 1st rank, but now it's not working because this is a supported pass pawn by the rook. Game over here for Magnus. Alireza simply pushed the pawn further. Here Magnus Carlsen is trying again to do this pattern, but it's simply different now, different position. Here Magnus Carlsen delivered a check, and in this particular position after king to f3, Magnus Carlsen resigned. What's the issue? Of course, you can push the pawn, but we simply block it out, and now you can promote. We take this one is rolling. Too many pawns are here, so again a messed up position here for black. So great game, I would say. Be careful about this e4 move in the exchange variation of the Queen's Gambit decline in the positional setup. You have to, I think, prepare this move. This e4 is always a concept. It's always there somewhere in the air. It's always a strategic idea that could be that could have an impact in the middle game stage, but it has to be really prepared. I've played now many times with the black pieces against this positional setup by white, and when my opponent always pushes the pawn to e4, I always consider, is this a mistake or did he rush it with the move? As I said, please check out my studies about this particular position, also especially with the black pieces, where I think you can have a great preparation. It's a different, I think, a little bit sideline, but with the main strategic with the same strategic concept, with the same strategic idea. So I think this is a very, very important study here in a very often, I would say, also played opening. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this battle between Alireza Firuza and Magnus Carlsen. Really, really beautiful. First of all, middle game, opening stage, also instructive end game, a very, very intense game by these two legends. So okay, if you want to see more analyzed games here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our competent chess games and also our competent chess games played by computers. And if you want to study more about the Queen's Gambit decline, also this exchange variation, check out our Queen's Gambit decline studies. Here's also the link, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.